Hello and welcome. You're with the Birth Whisperer, sharing global wisdom for confident childbirth. My name's Anna Wild, and today I am thrilled to be talking with my own dear sister, Monica Moonen, a midwife from Australia. Monica has given birth to 2 babies of her own and has been present at the births of over 200 babies. Monica has some great things to share about not only her own births, but also what she sees women doing when they're coping really well with labour. And what is it that made her become a midwife and makes her keep doing this awesome work? Welcome, Monica. Can you please tell us, what do you love about being a midwife?
Lovely. It's lovely to be here. I love and am constantly awed by the strength women show in birth. And that's one of the things that blows me away, that they just keep going. You know it's hard, it's tough, and they find that strength within themselves, and they don't give up, and that blows me away.
Was it like that for you when you had your babies? Just digging deeper than you've ever had to dig?
Do you know what's strange is that's not the part I remember. I remember with my second birth for a brief moment. My first birth was a bit unusual because it was only 4 hours really from start to finish, which for a first-time mum is pretty short. With my second, it was different, and it was 8 hours. And I remember towards the end thinking, how do people do this for 24 hours? And I don't know if I can keep going for a brief moment. But at the same time, when I walked out after having my first baby, I was like, oh, I'm really good at that, and I had such a buzz from it that it felt I was beautifully supported. My partner was amazing and never left my side and was physically incredibly there for me, and emotionally. And my mum was also with me, and having that support team was really important. And the preparation I'd done beforehand. But yeah, both incredibly positive experiences.
Monica, you just said, wow, I was so good at that after you had your first baby. Do you think that's something that comes naturally? You also mentioned having good support. What is it that made it feel like that for you? Because I'm sure a lot of women would like to feel like they're good at birth. Did you do anything special? Or is it just something that comes naturally?
I've definitely had an advantage over most women having a midwife as a mother and having had an education throughout my life of what birth was like, the good and the not and the ugly. I had a really huge spectrum of education about the reality of birth, but also that birth was a powerful event, that it was incredibly challenging, that it was something that you work through. And I didn't feel fear. And I think that's huge. Because of my education and beforehand, although there's trepidation and you don't know what the journey will be like or what it will be for you, I wasn't fearful as such. Not a lot of negative stuff would come up for me. So I didn't have to work through a lot of that. During my pregnancy, my main priorities were, okay, how do I build on that? Reading, I think the only book I read was Ina May Gaskin's Spiritual Midwifery, which is very 70s and very hippie, but has the most empowering birth stories. I literally just fed myself that book regularly, which helped further build that belief in my body's capability to do it if I was able to stay relaxed. I had a good understanding of what my body was doing, the process of it, the need of those sensations, how I needed to be approaching labour. So I was physically fit. I was a well, healthy young woman, and I was swimming and walking and preparing for birth. So I don't think it's necessarily an accident that the outcome was positive. We know from research there is a huge correlation between fears prior to birth and outcomes. It has a huge impact. So I was able to luckily not be blessed with a lot of fear to start with, and then just to be able to build on my own self-belief.
So if a woman's not coming from the background that you had and didn't have a midwife from mother, you've already mentioned quite a few things there that someone can do to support themselves, but can you just encapsulate that for us in a couple of points?
Place of birth and choice of caregiver is a massive predictor of outcomes and is so important, one of the biggest decisions you can make. And that requires some research. We often don't do enough looking before we just go with the system that's kind of introduced to us. It's really, really important beforehand to really think really carefully about who's going to be on this journey with you. What are they going to give to you? What are they going to help you with? What really are they going to provide emotionally, and in terms of what other environment's going to be there for you at the time? So those are huge choices, and I think doing research when you're first starting on that journey, because that care provider will contribute enormously. If there's real stuff and trauma that's there, address it. Please find a way to access that stuff that makes you feel like some of that has had a resolution.
So many women around the world don't necessarily automatically have access to a care provider who will be there during their pregnancy and during the birth and afterwards. But you're saying, if at all possible, find a way to have someone alongside that you already know, that you feel confident in, that you perhaps trust.
Considering a doula is a really interesting option. We know that doula support has a huge impact on outcomes, because that is someone who is there for you physically, emotionally. Before labour, you have an ongoing relationship with that person. They have a really good understanding of labour and birth support, and that's key. Has a really big impact on caesarean section rates. And if you're not able to find a caregiver who's able to do that for you, then that can be a really important addition to your birth support group. Also, accessing things like prenatal yoga or hypnobirthing or calm birthing, those courses that really try and get to building you up, addressing those fears, increasing your understanding of birth and the birth process can be invaluable.
Fantastic, Monica. And just to conclude, you've seen quite a few women give birth now. So in your experience of supporting women and observing women birthing and in labour, what are a couple of points that you've seen in terms of actions or ways of being or skills that women have that most support them to cope well during birth? If you can just name 2 or 3 things, that would be really helpful.
An understanding of mobility and positions in labour is really, really important. Understanding there's going to need to be those changes, that you move around, that you be open to options and you have those options open. Access to water is a blessing. I couldn't really underestimate.
Do you mean drinking or getting in it?
No, getting in. Okay. So access to water as in either the shower and also a bath if possible. Water immersion has a huge impact on labour and birth. We know that it reduces a woman's need for pain relief, in particular epidurals if you're heading down that road. We know that a labour is more likely to go normally and naturally if a woman gets in water. It's less likely to slow. We know that a woman is more likely to feel in control and to feel like particularly the pushing stage was less difficult. These are huge benefits. A woman's ability to work with her body, to find that place where they get in the zone. It is almost like a form of meditation, and whatever works for you, whether it's a certain motion or a breathing rhythm or counting in your head or visualizations, being able to find that switch where you're able to focus so that your head is involved with something while your body knows what it needs to do and gets that job done, is probably the biggest thing. And you'll almost see women when they switch into that phase, And
Right,
you
so
almost don't know what it's going to be until you get there. So that's why the preparation is really important.
Right, exactly. So do some research, do some preparation, get some skills on board so that when it comes
Yes.
to the time, those will support you.
That you've practiced
Yeah.
in a way, practicing and training.
Exactly. And you mentioned body positions, like moving your body into different positions, because so often women have only ever seen someone lying on their back in the movies, that
That's right.
they're not actually aware that it's okay to get up and move around, that it's helpful to be in a more like upright or forward position on their hands and knees, whatever feels comfortable, but just being a bit more creative and flexible with your body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The image that most of us have of birth is really, really limited in our everyday lives to poor scenes in comedy movies and sitcoms and horror stories that people sometimes tell each other. It's not a realistic portrayal of what a normal active birth looks like or how a woman is reacting to that birth. So getting educated and maybe seeing a few more videos to look at what are the possibilities, what's normal movement and position looking like in labour.
Awesome, Monica. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and skills and your lovely self. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.